There we go, folks. No warning. It's a secret midnight stream. Huh. Alright, it's a secret stream, folks. So if you made it on time, well, that one person, great work. Everybody else, you're going to be late. Sorry, it's a secret. You should have known. The False Sun by R. Scott Baker. We'll just see how that looks on the Audacity. Okay, not recording. Great. Just get that recording. Perfect. All right. Say it again. The False Sun by R. Scott Baker. Beasts only. Gotta say the quote first. Beasts. No, I didn't do it again. A quote from Gotaga, the Book of Chalk. Beasts only show the white of their eye in terror. Men show it always. A quote from Anonymous. For I have seen the virtuous in hell, and the wicked in heaven, and I swear to you, brother, the scream you hear in one, and the sigh you hear in the other, sound the same. I always wondered, like, is the Book of Chalk like a learning how to do chalk book? That's what I wonder. It's like, well, when you're drawing a human, you have to show the whites of their eyes always. Not like when you draw a deer, when you don't show it, only when they're in terror. 19, nope, other way around. 1119, year of the Tusk, the north shore of the Neliost Sea. Like many great and dangerous men, Sheonarnra was despised for many things. His penchant for mongering spies, not the least of them. The rules that bound the Norserai were unforgiving in those days. Try say, the holy mother of cities, was little more than a village huddling behind ruined walls of stone. The god kings of Imperial Umarau stared blindly from overthrown stone, moss-covered and almost forgotten. The Khand ruled the cities of the river Amris, an empire they called the Great Hall, and few people were so proud or so headstrong. They divided the ground between the feel and the werg, the weak and the glorious. They adhered to a simplicity that was at once a fanaticism. And they judged the way all men were prone to judge in those far antique days, without patience or mercy. Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and clip that in Audacity. But okay. Well, one person watching this, I hope you're getting a lot out of this. This is mostly just a test, although I am going to be getting deep into the False Sun, hopefully. That's the next video I'm going to make. I've got one in the works right now. I'm doing Prologue 2 of Darkness, and it's taking an eternity. So while I work on that, I'm also going to be doing the False Sun. I said I would when I hit 100 subscribers, which was like a long time ago. Anyway, here we go. Sheonarnra, for his part, celebrated the Khand hatred of spying. What did it matter if they declared him feel, so long as he knew their secrets? He knew what stout the All-King drank, and what slave decanted it for him. He knew what was bellowed in council, and what was whispered across pillows. Most importantly, he knew what was plotted. So he stood, waiting, before the gate of his Cyclopean tower, Nogaral, staring southward across the heaving leagues of the Neliost Sea, knowing that soon, very soon, a light would stride across the moonlit waters. I'm going to take that again. My mouth's too dry. Sorry, I know that's probably the best sound, is me drinking with the mic pointed right at my throat. All right. Most importantly, he knew what was plotted. So he stood waiting before the gate of his cyclopean tower, Nogarol, staring southward across the heaving leagues of the Nelios Sea, knowing that soon, very soon, a light would stride across the moonlit waters. To the left, I should clip that on Audacity and make it easier for myself later. Or better than that, I should record that paragraph by hitting the record button instead of not recording it. Sheo Narnra, for his part, celebrated the conned hatred of spying. What did it matter if they declared him feal, so long as he knew their secrets? He knew what stout the All-King drank, and what slave decanted it for him. He knew what was bellowed in council and whispered across pillows. Most importantly, he knew what was plotted. So he stood waiting before the gate of his cyclopean tower, Nogarol, staring southward across the heaving leagues of the Nelios Sea, knowing that soon, very soon, a light would stride across the moonlit waters. There we go. I'll clip that. And then I'll start a new recording. Haha, here we go. Got it that time. Just want to listen to all this. Got to get back to work soon. It's nice, Dookie Shoes. Was actually just listening to the White Luck Warrior audiobook earlier. Pretty nice. Yeah, I, for a long time, was just marathoning the audiobooks one after the other. And then I started doing the Darkness project that I'm doing, and I didn't want to sound exactly like him, so I stopped listening to them. Anyway. To the west lay the river Sursa, whose rusty waters bloomed far into the sea during day. Not during the day, just during day. Darn. To the west lay the river Sursa, whose rusty waters bloomed far into the sea during day. Beyond it, the wastes of Aegongaria plated the horizon, chapped and cracked like untanned leather. Low mountains knotted the north and east, domes of bald granite rising from the forested slopes, the hunched-back Arrakis. I didn't notice this before. There's actually a footnote there. Or rather, an endnote. Something about the Arrakis. What about it? Oh. The Arrakis, as the Norserai called them, the non-men called them the Vir Holatoi, the Wards of Viri. Okay, well, this story takes place on top of Viri, so that makes sense. Alrighty. I should clip that. Clipped. And now, start again. Nogarol stood upon the westernmost summit, Eros, a mountain that was a mass grave. Little more than a ramp of blunt granite, it climbed from the river toward the sea, where it ended in scarped confusion. Ruins made gums and teeth of its heights, structures obliterated in an age that men could not recollect for ignorance and savagery. Nogarol was both squat and rotund, resembling a monstrous byre more than a proper tower. Only the grand central chamber could boast any architectural splendor. Otherwise, it was cramped and labyrinthine, the lower levels pillared as densely as a forest, the upper levels celled like a hive. Pretty good. Clip that. I listened to my old reading of this a lot to prepare reading it again. And some of those lines I really liked the way I did it, and other ones I did terribly. A lot of words I just said wrong, and not even like fantasy words. I said like normal words wrong. Instead of saying for beneath, go listen to the other one. I say fur beneath. I don't know what was going on there. All right, starting again. The construction of the tower had caused an uproar in Sauglish 2 centuries previous. The Sohonk, in particular, had objected, seeing in it the designs of their old rival, Ketangira. Again, my mouth is a little dry. The construction of the tower had caused an uproar in Sogleash 2 centuries previous. The Sohonk, in particular, had objected, seeing in it the designs of their old rival, Kettengira. Even then they had suspected. But suspicions were not enough to sway an all-king who'd grown to prize the Mengeka and their disdain of scruple. Nogaral, they named it. The High Round. Clip that. Pop. All right, and now we're at the part of the story that I didn't read for my first video on this, because I had a limited understanding of what was legal to post on YouTube, and I was like, well, I can't post a whole chapter from a book, I'll go to jail. Apparently you can just do that, and I'm not posting the text, I'm just reading it, it's just my voice. It could be anything in this book. All right. They are called the barricades, the non-man says. The artisan himself fashioned them. The man gazes in wonder at the configurations of Nymelin light. So that none might enter, he murmurs. Kettengira lowers his porcelain face in assent. So that none might enter. Sheonarnra almost stumbles. So dazzling is the sunlight across the immense curvatures of gold. So deep is the pitch of the surrounding fall. The non-man steadies him with a firm hand. This is what my master sought? To tear down the barricades? And his masters before him, the non-man replies, for more than 200 years. He studies the mad non-man. And what lies within? The black eyes did not waver. The truth my brothers could not bear. Go ahead and clip that. I'm not really sure how to make non-men sound. I think my natural inclination is to make them sound like, you know, a giant alien person. Oh, I'm a non-man, but that's not very good to listen to. So I don't know. I just make them sound kind of normal. I make them sound like sad people. I don't know. They're all pretty sad, the ones that we meet. So that's what I go with. Alrighty. Here we go. Next part. At last he glimpsed it, a point like a falling star. I'm sorry. A point like a failing star? A failing star? Okay. I mean, is that a typo? Is it supposed to be falling star? A point like a failing. What's a failing star? I'm going to say falling star. Sorry, R. Scott Baker. Sorry, whoever edited this book. I think it was nobody. All right. Sorry for hitting the mic. I'm gonna restart this recording. All right. At last he glimpsed it, a point like a failing star. I changed my mind. Sheonarnra stood immobile. The wind came from the north, answering the sea's long inhalation. Answering the sea's long inhalation. It made lunacy of his hair and braids, slapped his robes with a snared thrush's fury. The distant light blinked through it, and a light glitter from across. From the top. At last he glimpsed it, a point like a falling star. Or a failing star. A point like a failing falling star. Sheonarnra stood immobile. The wind came from the north, answering the sea's long inhalation. It made lunacy of his hair and braids, slapped his robes with a snared thrush's fury. The distant light blinked through it, a white glitter from across the black back of the sea, vanishing and reappearing as faraway rollers plucked the nocturnal line of the horizon. I can do a little bit of that. The distant light blinked through it, a white glitter from across the black back of the sea, vanishing and reappearing as faraway rollers plucked the nocturnal line of the horizon. There we go. Clip that. Bop. And start again. Bop. The wind howled about the tower, made moaning flutes of the surrounding ruin, and it comforted Sheonarnra, even as its violence forced him to lean against his toes, always at his back, always rushing south, across the sea, and over the painted cities, into the across the sea, and over the painted cities, into the eyes of his witless enemies. The distant spark became more constant, gathered both luminosity and portent as it crept above the blind line of the Neliost. Clouds like scrapes formed a scan across the starry vault. The star the non-man called Imburil cast his shadow over the cobble before him, and Sheonarnra considered the wildness of his wind-blown outline. The wind and the nail, Sheonarnra thought in elation. Both would be at his back. Clipping that. Start again. I really like that passage. This had been an old habit of his, identifying and assessing omens, born of days when he still walked past the gods could reckon. Had he not known who was about to darken his threshold, he would have cursed himself for a fool for indulging it. The light gathered brightness all out of proportion to its approach, and despite the stain, Sheonarnra found himself wondering at its brilliance. Then finally he saw him, little more than a region of blackness at first, a shadowy glimpse behind the luminous corona, then more substantial, more human. Titurga. Titurga. The Sohonk Archdeme walked the low sky, holding high the diurnal, the famed day lantern, a fan of mirrors that reflected the sun even in the deepest night. The glare climbed as he neared, and Sheonarnra watched the great oblong of illumination, impossible daylight, slip across the stony expanses, reaching out towards Nogaral. It seemed miraculous. Sorry, I'm moving the book too much. It seemed miraculous. The weightlessness of the light, the way whole fields of detail and swinging shadows could be dandled in the thin-fingered hands of a man. The day lantern scrolled over the rising slopes, then at last caught Nogaral's western curve, where it paused as though fixed. And from night, Sheonarnra found himself staring into day. The pitch and scrawl of ruin, the black mortises sketching the stones of the tower's ponderous wall, the knots of scrub and hanging weed. For the first time, he saw how shadows were simply pieces of night. And even though he knew, as profoundly, as fanatically, as only a member of the Holy Consort could, he found himself wondering how it had come to this. Sheonarnra could not help but marvel. The sun! The sun itself, raised in the hands of a man. Squinting, he could see him, Titurga, his outline gilded in the manner of those peering into the bright outside from the recesses of a dark room. The great hero mage, come to deliver his ultimatum. The legendary Archdemu Sohonku, the glorious pupil, perhaps the most powerful sorcerer the ground had ever known. I'm going to clip that. Nobody's watching. That's okay. This is a test anyway. Da, 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 da. At last Turturga saw him below, and the diurnal answered his sudden attention. Sheon Narnra could no more look at the man than he could look into the sun. He raised his arms like a slave in summer fields, and for the first time he witnessed the magic of the diurnal from the inside. Blue skies had been pulled across the void of night, his skin pricked with the promise of sunburn. It was a sight so miraculous as to almost blot the stain, the premonition of deceit that marred all things sorceress. He watched the false sun set in the false sky, then stop, low and bloody as sunset, throwing shadows outward along in lines that non-men could describe in arithmetic. Turturga had set the day lantern down, he realized. The hero mage would deny the advantages that night bestows upon cunning. No matter. The shadow of the walking archdeme reminded Sheon Narnra long before the man. It hurts my voice to do Turturga's voice. The diurnal, Turturga called, still a silhouette in the man's cauldron. Emilides gave it to me. Archdeme, Sheon Narnra said in numb greeting. Sheon Narnra, Turturga replied, coming to a step mere paces from him. He was tall, broad of shoulder. He wore a Percondi cloak over his black woolen robes, 2 wolfskin. Oh, hey there, one person. He wore a Percondi cloak over his black woolen robes, 2 wolfskins sewn together, so that the tailings of the face fluttered side by side below his groin. His hair was white, spun with the odd memory of gold. It matched his physique, holding something of its cascading form even in the wind. But it was his high, blunt face that commanded attention, shallow of nose, thick of brow and cheek. And of course, the bronze skull of an infant child braided into his beard, his famed totem. I'm going to take that again. And of course, the bronze skull of an infant child braided into his beard, his famed totem. I'm going to clip that. And keep going. I don't know how invested you are in this one person watching, but I'm going to hit this a bit more, probably to the next page break. Or to the next Kettengira scene. We'll see how it goes. Kind of on a roll. Archdeme, Sheon Narnra repeated, offering the ritual repetition, at once a rebuke and a reprieve. To refer to equals by name before formal greetings was an affront among the Umeri. Had the Archdemu Sohonku at last adopted the crude ways of the Khand? Oh, there goes my air conditioner. That's not good. Hold on a second, folks. Be right back. Oh, yeah, I know that made for great live streaming. Sorry, folks. When the air conditioning turns on, it messes up the recording, as you can probably imagine. Hmm. You know, Shay is quite the lover, and I think about how in all of the Second Apocalypse, probably Shay Narnra and Orang are the golden couple. They're the longest running couple for sure. 2,000 years. And they seem to really be good for each other. In ways that a lot of the couples are destructive, they seem to really build each other up. All right. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Da, 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 da. Oh, but there we go. You look pale, Turturgus said. It is good that I bring sunlight. Sorry, one second. You look pale, Turturgus said. It is good that I bring sunlight. Sheo Narnra snorted. You Mengeka, the hero mage continued, always thinking that wisdom is a mushroom. The ground is so broad, and yet you and your brothers insist on digging deep. A sour look. Nogaral greets you, Archdeme. Taturga walked about him, as if pacing the high corner of a circle. He carried himself as only a master of the Sohonk, the learned school, could. Erect in the manner of nimble, sound-sleeping men, relaxed in the way of high clan nobility. He gestured to the marmoreal wreckage about them, the stumps of pillars struck in arrested daylight. The ruins of Viri. The ruins of Viri. The very same, Sheonarna replied. A lesson, Turturga said, to those who would dig too deep. Sheonarna sighed conspicuously. To what do I owe the honor of this visit? He asked, gesturing for Turturga to enter his vast abode. Whispers, Turturga responded, drawing his gaze about him before... I actually can't be doing that because it's going to be on the recording. Whispers, Turturga responded, drawing his gaze about him before stepping into... Drawing his gaze about him before stepping into the shadow of Nogaral's gate. He was making an inventory, Sheonarnra knew, of all the wards coiled within the stonework about him. Nothing that could threaten him, certainly. Casting a final glance at the impossible dusk, Sheonarnra strode forward, bearing his back the way the laws of hospitality demanded. He fairly cracked his teeth for apprehension. He passed beneath the enormous lintel, into the warmth of plastered walls. The wind's roar was pinched into a chalky whistle. A step ahead of the hero mage, Sheonarnra... Jeez. He passed beneath the enormous lintel, into the warmth of plastered walls. The wind's roar was pinched into a chalky whistle. A step ahead of the hero mage, Sheonarnra walked on a bolt of sunlight so bright that for the first several paces, the braziers were filled with wavering invisibility for fire. Whispers brought you here? Aye, the man said from behind. They say you have found something. They say you have found something. They say that you have found something. Had he not known Turturga, Sheo Narnra would have thought him a rank fool coming here like this, alone. But he knew Turturga's might, and more importantly, he knew the way the man used hectoring boldness to magnify that might. To come here like this was to say that he could arrive at any time, and that he possessed no fear. Sheo Narnra paused and turned, regarded his old rival. The man had a warrior's face, chipped from fearless bone, everything blunt in the way of shields. What does it matter what we find? He said. The Ark is a riddle without solution. The first hard moment passed between them. Who, the Archdemu Sohonku replied, can say which riddles can or cannot. Who, the Archdemu Sohonku replied, can say which riddles can or cannot be solved beforehand. I should cut there. Clip. And start again. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm noticing lines that I messed up, and then in editing them the first time I did this, I just left them in thinking that they were right. Falling star is a good example. A failing star? Sorry. My brain saw that and just auto-corrected it to falling star. All right. He gazes past the mad non-men to the second horn, vast and golden, its phallic curve canted over the mountainous ruins of the occlusion. None possessed my cunning. Ketangira lowers his chin to his chest. We shall see. Come, Sheo Narnra said. Loose your gaze. See. You will understand what I mean. He resumed. That's weird. In every other scene where like it goes to Ketangira and the barricades, and then it cuts back to them, there's one of these page breaks. But only on that one page, in that one section, not only is there no page break, but like there's not even, like they don't have like a Baker page break, and they don't even have a line break. It goes straight from that into the next one. And I think that's not how it looks in the digital version. That's a printing error, perhaps. Again, you know, it's all well and good when you don't want to have an editor, but then it just sort of small issues like that. Maybe you should have had one. All right, I'm going to read that again to separate that a little bit. The way the page does not. He gazes past the mad non-men to the second horn, vast and golden, its phallic curve canted over the mountainous ruins of the occlusion. None possessed my cunning. Ketangira lowers his chin to his chest. We shall see. Not that everybody who's reading The False Sun is doing it because they want to do a performative reading. However, for my purposes, having that scene break there would have been more useful. I would have delivered We Shall See slightly different, as you saw just now. Again, I think that's an error. It's the only time in the story where there's no page break there between the two, like the flashback and the main story. Anyway, call up the editor on that one and complain. Oh, you can't. There wasn't one. No, I'm sure there was. That's just a joke. All right. Right, yeah, well, I'm going to clip that because that's a scene transition. And I'm doing more work for myself. Clip. Start again. Here we go. Come, Sheo Narnra said. Loose your gaze. See. You will understand what I mean. He resumed leading Turturga down the main reception hall, winding the small, as the non-men put it, affecting careless questions about the affairs of the all. Do they still riot in Soglish? The library is secure, the Sohonkin singer said in clipped dismissal. And yet, I see Nogarol is all but abandoned, he added in an airy, peering about corners tone. Just as they say. The archdemon of the Mangekka resisted looking back, knowing the hero mage smiled. Who says? At last, they outran the final vestiges of the day lantern. Their shadows now jumped in counterpoint, sweeping like spiders' legs as they approached and passed each of the corridor's flaming braziers. Your spies, Sheonarnra. Go ahead and clip that there. Clip. Start again. What's going on, four people? All right, here we go. The Archdemu Mengeku managed to stifle his laughter. They walked the remainder of the corridor in silence. Despite his worry, Sheonarnra had occasion to feel shame for the mean and brutish nature of his abode. For in spite of everything, he had been raised in Umeri of the Long Bones, the same as Taturga. He knew the askance judgments, the summary ease of the man's condemnation. Only dogs dwelt in kennels. Only dogs dwelt in kennels. But what did it matter, this false home, when their true abode would drop any mortal to his knees? The Ark. They could stack 100 libraries within it, 1,000. At last, they entered the broad circle of the Asina, the expansive hub of Nogarol. The great rug, woven of brushed white grasses, softened both the floor and the gloom. Bronze tripods glowered golden, casting yellow petals across the weave. Tablet racks fashioned of black ash loomed about the... That's a tough sentence. Tablet racks of fashioned black ash loomed over the chamber's circumference. Say that 10 times fast. Tablet racks of Tablet racks fashioned of black ash loomed about the chamber's circumference. Sheonarnra stifled a grin of duping glee, knowing that a stylus had never touched any of them. He walked towards the lone attendant, a near-naked Skintian slave, who awaited them with refreshment near the center. He paused and turned when he realized that Taturga had failed to follow him. There is someone beneath me, the hero mage said, scowling. Someone deeply stained. Sheonarnra paused, nodded. A precaution, nothing more. A precaution, nothing more. It is of no consequence. Wrath flashed into Turga's eyes. Nevertheless, there remains someone beneath me. Someone hooded in our shared sin. How do I clip that? Stop. Start again. All right. I'm going to take this to the next page break. Wrath flashed into Turga's eyes. I already said that. They gazed at each other with the flat hostility of lizards. Sheonarnra found himself shirking first, if only to hasten the pantomime, or so he reassured himself. Even still, he could feel the prickle, the prinkle of stilk. No. Even still, he could feel the prickle of stink beneath his robes, the ache of expectation in his throat. Must I take precautions of my own? Taturga asked, his voice as mild as blades in water. That wasn't mild. Let's try that again. Must I take precautions of my own? Taturga asked, his voice as mild as blades in water. The Archdemu Mengaku made as if his throat required clearing. I apologize. He will withdraw. I apologize. He will withdraw. This earned a heartbeat of avid scrutiny. No, I would like to hold him in my eye. Again, Shao Narnra found himself wilting before the hero mage's glare. Exactly, it seemed to him, as he would have in old days. Paramount among the many worries that had plagued this mad gambit was the fear that he could no longer be the feel that Turturga would expect him to be. Now that death had become his sole Now that death had become his sole horror. Now that he had seen. Very well, Shao Narnra conceded, bowing in the shallow, cursive way of the Umeri. He turned to the attendant. Summon our... He paused as if at the humor of the word Uncas had delivered to him. Our guest. His terror plain, the young slave scampered into the gloom of the nearest hallway. Shao Narnra resumed suffering Turturga's onerous regard. And contempt, as it turned out. They speak of you often in Umarau and Soglish, Turturga said, his manner sinister for being so bland. They say you have the eyes of a serpent. Shao Narnra smiled. Vanity had been a well-known flaw of his, yes. He had preened in the days before. No, just a dog, no different from other men. What a child he'd been. They call it the threshold, a narrow phalange of iron set high upon the upright horn, the hanging porch of the barricades, which the Ishroi of old had raised about the uppermost sanctum of their wicked foe. You can see the non-man there, as much as not, sitting on the edge, where the air is too thin for fat men to breathe, waiting for souls more ordered than his own to tear down the barricades. What the artisan has wrought, Shao Narnra says to him, does not seem possible. The Archdemu Mengeku nods. Oh, sorry, no, that's Kenton Gira with the next line. What the artisan has wrought, Shao Narnra says to him, does not seem possible. The Archdemu Mengeku nods. Yes, but only if you look at it as... Yes, but only if you look at it as something to be forced. Tears well in the non-men's eyes. What are you saying? Some doors need not be broken. All right. Thank you, folks, for joining the inaugural session of, what did I say? Erratic Jimmy's Secret Midnight Stream. This was more to function as a test. I kind of want to see how this video comes out. The audio is coming out of this mic, but I don't know if that's a good thing or not. We'll find out. I also did a test before that. I wonder what happened to the attendant at the end. Kind of forgot about him. Yeah, I'm thinking he probably fell down the veridic well. I'm sure he probably died during, or maybe on impact. But I like, what else could have happened to him? Everything in like the general area fell in. So, yeah. Or maybe he got out while the getting was good. If I was him, as soon as the alien started talking to the old man, I would think probably no one's gonna remember me. I'll just sneak out. I mean, what's the worst thing? They're gonna kill him? Anyway, thanks for coming, folks. 45 minutes, not so bad. I'll probably do this next Friday at midnight. Don't tell anybody though; it's a secret. Okay, goodbye.